This is the story of Joseph and Aseneth. This is Joseph, who was the firstborn child of Rachel, and when he went into Egypt, and how he married his wife, Aseneth, and who she was and where she came from, and the whole story of their meeting. It's the most beautiful love story I think one could ever know. So this is it. Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. It's in Genesis 41:45. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of the famine came, which Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. Genesis 41:50. And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Aseneth, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore unto him. Genesis 46:20. And the life of Joseph is recorded in Genesis 37, 1 to 50. Genesis chapter 37, verse 1 to chapter 50, verse 26. The king of Egypt changed his name to Zaphenath-Paneah because of his ability to reveal secrets. Okay, this is the story. Chapter 1. It came to pass in the first year of the 7 years of plenty, in the 2nd month, that Pharaoh sent out Joseph to go around all the whole land of Egypt. And Joseph came in the 4th of the month of the 1st year, on the 18th day of the month, into the district of Heliopolis. And he was collecting all the corn of that land as the sand of the sea. Now there was in that city a man, a satrap of Pharaoh, and this man was the chief of all Pharaoh's satraps and lords. And he was very rich, and wise, and generous, and he was Pharaoh's counselor, and his name was Pentipherus, and he was the priest of Heliopolis of On. And Pentipherus had a virgin daughter of about 18 years old, tall and beautiful and graceful, more beautiful than any other virgin in the land. And she was quite unlike the daughters of the Egyptians, but in every respect like the daughters of the Hebrews. And she was as tall as Sarah, and as beautiful as Rebekah, as fair as Rachel, and this virgin's name was Aseneth. And the fame of her spread through all that land, even to its remotest corners, and all the sons of the lords and all the satraps and of the kings sought her hand in marriage, young men, all of them. And there was great rivalry between them because of her, and they began to fight amongst themselves because of Aseneth. And Pharaoh's eldest son heard about her, and he begged his father to give her to him as his wife. And he said to him, Give me Aseneth, the daughter of Pentipherus, the priest of Heliopolis, as my wife. And his father Pharaoh said to him, Why should you want a wife of lower station than yourself? Are you not king of all the earth? No. See now, the daughter of King Joachim is betrothed to you, and she is a queen and very beautiful indeed. Take her as your wife. Chapter 2. Now Aseneth despised all men and regarded them with contempt. Yet no man had ever seen her, for Pentipherus had a tower in his house, and it was large and very high. And the top story had 10 rooms in it. The first room was large and pleasant, and it was paved with purple stones. and its walls were faced with precious stones of different kinds. And the ceiling of that room was of gold, and within it were ranged the innumerous gods of the Egyptians, in gold and in silver. And Aseneth worshipped all these, as she fed them and offered sacrifices to them. The second room contained all the finery of Aseneth's adornment and treasure chests, and there was much gold in it, and silver, and garments woven with gold, and precious stones of great price, and fine linens. And all her girlish ornaments were there. The third room contained all the good things of the earth, and it was Aseneth's storehouse. And 7 virgins had the remaining 7 rooms, one each. And they used to wait on Aseneth, and were of the same age as she was. For they were all born on the same night as Aseneth, and they were very beautiful, like the stars of heaven, and no man or boy had ever had anything to do with them. And Aseneth's large room, where she spent her time, had 3 windows. One window looked out over the courtyard to the east, and the second looked to the north onto the street, and the third to the south. And a golden bed stood in the room facing east, and the bed had a coverlet of purple woven with gold, embroidered with blue and fine linen. In this bed Aseneth used to sleep alone, and no man or woman ever sat upon it except Aseneth only. And there was a great court all around the house, and a wall around the court, very high, and built with great rectangular stones. And there were 4 gates to the court, overlaid with iron, and 18 strong young men-at-arms used to guard each one of them. And along the wall inside the court every kind of beautiful tree that produces fruit had been planted, and the fruit on every one of them was ripe, for it was harvest time. And on the right of the court there was an ever-bubbling spring of water, and beneath the spring a great chism that received the water from the spring, and out of which a river flowed through the middle of the court and watered all the trees. Chapter 3. And it came to pass in the 4th month of the 18th day of the month that Joseph came into the district of Heliopolis. And as he approached the city, Joseph sent 12 men in front of him to Pontifus, the priest of Heliopolis, saying, May I be your guest today, for it is near noon and time for a midday meal. The sun's heat is overpowering, and I would enjoy some refreshment under your roof. When Pontifus heard this, he was overjoyed and said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Joseph. And Pontifus called his steward and said to him, Make haste and get my house into order, and prepare a great feast, because Joseph, the mighty man of God, is coming to us today. And Aseneth heard that her father and mother had come back from their country estate in the country. And she rejoiced and said, I will go and see my father and my mother, for they have come back from their family estate in the country. And Aseneth hurried and put on a fine linen robe of blue, woven with gold, and a golden girdle around her waist. And she put bracelets around her hands and feet, and she put on golden trousers and a necklace around her neck. And there were precious stones all about her, with the names of Egyptian gods inscribed on them everywhere, on the bracelets and on the stones, and the names of the idols were stamped on the stones. And she put a tiara on her head, and bound a diadem around her temples, and covered her head with a veil. Chapter 4. And she hurried and came down the staircase from her story at the top. And she came to her father and mother and greeted them. And it gave Pontifex and his wife great joy to see their daughters, Aseneth, adorned as the bride of God. And they took out all the good things they had brought from their estate in the country and gave them to their daughter. And Aseneth rejoiced at the good things, and at the fruit, the grapes, and the dates, and at the doves, and at the pomegranates, and the figs, and they were all delightful. And Pontifex said to his daughter Aseneth, "My child." And she said, "Lo, here I am, my lord." And he said to her, "Sit down, please, between us. I want to talk to you." And Aseneth sat down between her father and her mother. And her father Pontifex took her right hand in his right hand and said to her, "My child." And Aseneth said, "What is it, father?" And Pontifex said to her, "See, Joseph, the mighty man of God, is coming to us today, and he is ruler of all the land of Egypt. For Pharaoh has appointed him ruler of all our land, and he is the distributor of corn throughout the country, and is to save it from the famine that is to come upon it. And Joseph is a man that worships God, and he is discriminating, and a virgin as you are today, and a man of great wisdom and knowledge, and the Spirit of God is upon him, and the grace of the Lord is with him. So come, my child, and I will give you to him as his wife, and you shall be his bride, and he shall be your bridegroom forever." And when Aseneth heard what her father said, a great red sweat came over her, and she was furious, and looked sideways at her father, and she said, "Why should my lord and my father speak like this, and talk as if he would hand me over like a prisoner to a man of another race, a man who was a fugitive and was sold as a slave? Is this not the shepherd's son from the land of Canaan, and he was abandoned by him? Is this not the man who had intercourse with his mistress, and the master threw him into prison where he lay in darkness, and Pharaoh brought him out of prison because he interpreted his dream? No, I will marry the oldest son of the king, for he is king of all the earth." On hearing this, Pontifex thought it wiser to say no more to his daughter about Joseph, for she had answered him arrogantly and in anger. Chapter 5. And behold, one of the young men from Pontifex's retinue burst in and said, "Lo, Joseph is at the gates of our court." And Aseneth quickly left her father and mother and ran upstairs and went into her room and stood at the big window that looked towards the east, so as to see Joseph as he came into her father's house. And Pontifex and his wife and all his relations went out to meet Joseph. And the gates of the court that looked east were open, and Joseph came in, sitting in Pharaoh's viceroy chariot. And there were 4 horses yoked together, white as snow, with golden reins, and the chariot was covered over with gold. And Joseph was wearing a marvelous white tunic, and the robe wrapped around him was purple, made of linen woven with gold. There was a golden crown on his head, and all around the crown were 12 precious stones, and above the stones 12 golden rays, and a royal scepter was in his right hand. And he held an olive branch stretched out, and there was much fruit on it. And Joseph came into the court, and the gates were shut, and the strangers, whether man or woman, remained outside, because the gatekeepers had shut the doors. And Pontifex came, and his wife, and all his relatives, except their daughter Aseneth. And they made obeisance to Joseph with their faces to the ground. And Joseph got up from his chariot and extended his right hand to them. I'll leave it here and I'll finish the reading. We'll do another lot shortly.